Welcome one and all to a new episode of MyRPG Podcast. I'm back from a little bit of a hiatus overseas in Japan, and I'm back with a episode with Caio Santos, who's an artist based out of Brazil, renowned for his work for RPG show Critical Role, as well as other independent works he does for himself and commissions that he takes. Caio helps me kind of get an understanding of the Brazilian RPG scene, as well as his kind of take on interpreting people's characters and RPG scenes into the art that he creates. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Welcome one and all to a new episode of MyRPG Podcast. Today's guest is Caio Santos. Caio, will you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Caio Santos. I'm a Brazilian artist. Formerly, I'm training in design. I did close to 5 years of design in university, but right out of it, I started focusing more on illustration, and right after that, I got into D&D like full strength. Started working with it, and Critical Role also helped out with that. And that's like my main thing right now. It's a freelance artist, doing work for a whole lot of RPG fans all over the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and actually, that's the first thing I kind of want to jump into. So, were you into RPGs before you started doing all of these commissions and all this work, or was that something that came later?
Yeah, so I've always like being a gamer, like only on video games and stuff. I always wanted to get into D&D, but my group of friends, like it's your classic nerd group of friends, but they were each into their own kind of stuff, and I never could like get all of them at once to start a campaign, and I never really knew someone who was already into a campaign to introduce me to it. So I kind of just wanted to get into it in high school, in college, but I never quite could find a group, and I first played my first session of D&D actually like last year. My girlfriend started the game for us. She has a lot more experience with it than I do, and I'm a whole lot into it right now. But I was never like, as a kid, I never played it actually.
And I always wondered, Caio, is D&D popular or relatively popular in Brazil? Because I've only met a couple of Brazilians who happen to actually play RPGs and be into video games and things like that, but I didn't know if it was a common thing or if they were just rare cases.
Oh, no. It's quite popular. I don't know if you have seen, but nerd culture in Brazil is like, it's always been very big, and we started having like what do you call it? Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm. We
started having like our own edition of Comic-Con like a couple years ago, and it's always been quite big. Like we were always video, everything that entertainment. We have a lot of Japanese immigrants. Like historically, you have a lot of culture from Japan and video games, and reached out to every kind of gaming, and D&D is definitely like people played it. It launched since it first was around, and there's a lot of older people that really play it. Now D&D is getting so big, and you're getting a lot of younger people, me included, playing it, but it was always big.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention the Japanese kind of Brazilian connection when it comes to immigration and stuff like that. I was just in Japan, and there's a lot of apparently one of the largest concentrations of Japanese outside of Japan is Brazil as well. So that kind of makes sense why they kind of bring over anime and video games and parts of their culture.
Yeah. That's huge here. It's very huge.
But yeah, so it sounds like there's this kind of established base for RPGs and things like that as well in Brazil. How long have you been into art then as well? And was this anime that inspired you to get into art, or was it more traditional forms of art?
I didn't draw a lot or was into art since very young. I started getting into it more like when I was 7, and it was a kind of like anime. But at the time, I didn't even know what was anime, because we had on Open Television, we had Dragon Ball Z, we had Knights of the Zodiac. We had a lot of anime on Open Television, and I just thought they were like a different style of cartoon. And I really liked it, the animation and stuff. And I started drawing because of it. I drew a lot of Dragon Ball Z. And I started out like tracing magazines because I really like the Toriyama style for Dragon Ball Z. And right after that, I immediately want to start drawing stuff on my own. And it went from there.
What's really funny is you mentioned the Dragon Ball Z and tracing. I remember when I was here in the neighborhood I grew up in, had a strong Black and Hispanic community, and we were all into Dragon Ball Z. And I remember specifically printing pictures from the library and then having people color in or trace it, and then selling that stuff to other kids for like a quarter or 2 quarters.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that was a large part of my early childhood, and learning a little bit about how money works too, because the library would obviously give you printing for free, and I was making money out of it.
Oh yeah. I did tracing from these magazines we had here. They were huge at the time. They were called Ultra Jovem. Roughly translating, it's like super young or young super, something like that. And they basically talk all about Japanese culture and anime, and I just got them all from my friends. They had old ones, and I just took them all, and I searched for something that I liked. And they had this like fan letter section at the end of the magazine, and they always put drawings from fans. The fans, like, they spent crazy time, because no, they weren't digital at the time. There was like color pencil drawings, and they were amazingly good. And they sent the paper, the page of with the drawing to the magazine, and they put them in this fan letter section at the end of the magazine. And I saw them, and I was like really amazed, and that really helped me a lot to start creating my own stuff too, because I first noticed that they were drawing things from Dragon Ball or Sailor Moon and stuff, but they were doing their own drawings. And like really my first contact with fan art was like really rootsy with the magazine and stuff.
And Caio, what then made you go from like, I just enjoy drawing and this is a hobby, to being like, oh, I want to like further pursue my education and studies in art and drawing? What was the big thing that made that difference?
Well, like I mentioned, I had a lot of influence on game, and right when I was creating characters and I started having contact with the internet, because like in the 90s, it was kind of still getting common in Brazil, and I started to getting access to it right around like 99, and I started seeing a lot of character creation for gaming and concept art and all that stuff. And I started really getting into it in high school, and I went through that thing everyone goes through when you just get out of high school, you don't know what you want to do for your life, and that pressure that art doesn't make any money. And I chose to go to design university, and my kind of like my excuse to doing that was to get into game design and concept art for gaming. And in university that I start like really focusing myself. I just stopped doing everything else I was doing and just focused on getting like honing my skills at university.
Yeah. So where does, in your time in university, like where did you kind of gain your interest then in getting into RPGs again and Critical Role specifically? Because, you know, we're kind of barreling towards you getting into Critical Role and being kind of one of the biggest critters who does fan art and even now official fan art.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, in university, I still wasn't like big on doing RPG stuff. Like I was into like doing scenarios for like MMORPGs, and it was like my whole reference was that. And really, what really got me into like classic RPG tabletop was Critical Role. I'm a big YouTube guy. Like I watch a lot of YouTube, and I always saw on my recommended list the old Critical Role thumbnails, like with the blue background and like one of the casting on the foreground. And I neglected it for a long time, and once I was like nothing much to watch. I was just stuff that was on my feed. I wasn't liking anything anymore. So I remembered that they had like this long running program. I really didn't know it was Dungeons and Dragons even at the time. And the time I saw it, I just fell in love, and I watched like I binge watched it like fucking crazy. I watched like all day for weeks, and I really did my first fan art on the last art with the Chroma Conclave, and from there, like the response of the community was really great. Like from the beginning, I had never seen a community that receives people so well. Like they really respect you no matter where you who you are, from where you are. They just take you in, and I just felt the love from there, and I fell in love with the community, the show, and I just kept going. It was what I was doing.
And some of your Critical Role fan art is, you know, some of it is obviously depicting scenarios that Matt has done, but other of it, like the headshots and stuff like that, are very high detailed things that, you know, still you're creating a character just from descriptions and words and kind of a collective groupthink. What is it that you're looking for or listening for when you hear Matt or Mercer or any of the cast explaining a scenario that inspires you and then gets you kind of the hook into what the scene should look like or the person should be like?
What I look for? Well, I think Matt is just fantastic at like describing scenarios and the NPCs, and they're really good because when you're freelance and you start to get into freelance, you don't really get a lot of work from the start. Like you have to build your fan base, you need to have clients, and while you don't have it, you have to practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, what you're doing once you're practicing is trying to get like, I'll build my own references. I need to what do you call it when someone like proposes like a project to you? I forget the word.
Like a commission?
Yeah, no, I remember. It's like a briefing. You need to like make your own briefing because you still don't have the clients, and you need to practice. You need to do a lot of stuff. And I was never really good at like giving myself briefings. And when I listened to Critical Role for so long, I just realized that every time they explain it, and they explain it with so much detail, like it's like a real person that's alive, like it makes very easy for you to just take that image that they put in your head and translate it to whatever, whether you're drawing like in the paper or to Photoshop. I just try to listen when they're really getting to like the characteristics of a character or of a place, when it sets like a good mood and the image comes to your head, and then you just do your best to get it on your canvas.
And what's the time it takes to do these pictures? I know they're obviously, depending on how intense and how detailed you want to be, can deviate. But how much time would you say, from like smallest amount of time to most amount of time, you'll put into your projects?
Yeah, so like after I got big into Critical Role, I started getting a lot more commissions because of the exposure. And until then, I took really long to make these pieces. Like basically like 2 weeks after doing it. You're talking about the very detailed headshots. Those like they take reasonably a short time to sketch it out and to make a pose and define the features, but to finalize and put in all the details, it can take like days. I'll say like when I started doing those for Critical Role, I was doing maybe 5 to 6 days to complete one of them. And from there, like I just got so much practice that I can do one of those in 2 to 3 days, I would say. But like focused on it, not doing anything else.
So your pictures are amazing, your illustrations are fantastic, and you're getting out this little bit of acclaim. So then you said just recently now you've actually started to play in your own RPGs. What's that like? What's that experience? And also, what was your first character like? I'd love to hear what you decided to play.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but really in the beginning when I was starting doing Critical Role stuff, people were doing these like these characters, like they were the sons and daughters from the main cast, and I got really into Percy and Vax, and I got into the joke that the people were doing like these threads, posting their designs for the kids, and I just fell in love with a daughter for Vax and Keyleth. I named that Raven, and I really fell in love with the concept. And right around then, we were organizing our first session, and I just made whatever was close to Raven. I give her like a backstory very similar, and as it was my first character, I thought it was like a very good like backstory to have in mind, because it was very rich, and I really liked druids. I always liked a lot of druids, and that was it. That's my first character. I'm playing with her too now. Haven't met other ones, but I didn't make them. I've written some characters, but I still haven't got a chance to play them.
So you find yourself doing a lot of character creation, even if you're not,
Oh yeah, playing. For sure. Yeah.
And I guess that's the kind of artistic thing of always seeing like endless possibilities and things you want to do. Personally, I find, and I don't know if you've DM'd before. I'm assuming you've obviously been a player. Have you ever tried to DM or GM?
I DM'd one time only,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it for my family. We at Christmas, I like made a one-shot story, very short. It wasn't based on D&D. It was based on this other RPG called Tales from the Loop. Don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've never played it, but I actually have heard the name. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. And I took this system that you played, and I made like a short story for my family. It was pretty fun.
Did they enjoy it?
Yeah. They never played too. Like my mother and dad, they're really not into games, but they thought it was very cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I wish I could get my mother and my family into that type of stuff as well. But yeah, I was gonna say before I found out that interesting information about your home game with your family was that I find GMs and DMs are always consistently creating characters, and we have the benefit of immediately being able to insert them in games as NPCs or as people who will obviously inhabit the world if they go to another part of the game. Whereas I know some guys who only are players who tell me all the time about like I've got so many backup characters, I've got so many great ideas, but unfortunately I'm playing this one, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's awesome. But
yeah, to get a chance to expose them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as soon as you give somebody, and I guess I have obviously the podcast, and as I've explained on here, I've recorded 2 albums. I have a musical background, so music and podcasting were that thing for me, and art is obviously one of those things for you. I'm sure as well as other things you do. We kind of already have that release, but when you have somebody, let's say, who's had that hasn't had that release at all times, you immediately show them that you can create a thing and it can be your own and you can feel proud of it. Then immediately they just start running with it and they create 100 things.
Oh yeah, like I just love any opportunity I get to create characters. Like in these games, like Dragon Age or Monster Hunter, you get to create your character. Sometimes I just create a new game just to create characters and play with it, like the game creation systems. I just love every opportunity to create characters. Like even Dark Souls, like I'm a big player of Dark Souls, and I know that you're never gonna see your character. Like you put armor on it, you put a helmet on, and you'll never see. But I still I still spend like hours doing it. It's just fun.
Yeah, and I think all those are great RPGs. Dragon Age, you mentioned, Monster Hunter, like all these things. I think each of us finds the thing that we attach to most, and from our conversation, I'm figuring out character creation. That creativity is probably the biggest thing for you. I'm not saying that you probably don't enjoy adventuring and dungeon diving, but I think you love the idea of kind of fleshing out a backstory and giving a new life to an idea or a concept as well.
Oh yeah. It was like the thing about like creating a very deep character that made me such a fan of Liam on Critical Role, because when I first started, I didn't like Vex much. Like I thought it was kind of he's trying too hard, and when I start watching more and like seeing how Liam plays his characters, like he gives them so much like background, so much feeling that it just can't help but like him,
Yeah, and I think, and for those who don't even listen to Critical Role, this idea of like there being way more to your character than what's happening currently in the moment, or whatever the mission is, or whatever the task is. The idea that there's a long and storied past that you eventually, ideally through either getting to know them or them opening up finally to the rest of the party, is so rewarding. And the longer a game is, and I know with the Critical Role cast, their game went on for like 5, 6, 7 years. I forget exactly how long before the first campaign ended. But so they got to literally go from a bunch of nobodies with no backstories, just playing a game for fun on somebody's birthday, to like now we've got so much backstory, so much history, so much world building, and now we can kind of create these long and beautiful works, which will slowly but surely release to people and are of course table in our DM. And then the benefit of that is this amazing general arc over all the years. Now, a lot of people don't get to do that, unfortunately. I don't know if you've noticed it yourself, but I do notice it with my games. You're always dealing with schedules. You're always dealing with people having their own independent lives. So it's hard to get people down at a table consistently over and over again, unless it's their job in some cases. So, it might be hard to do. I know a lot of people out there who play RPGs as well. It's difficult to, let's say, have a game go past, 6th to 8th level, because that's typically where games die. But if you are able to, and I've been fortunate to, and I hope you can get the same thing, then it's really, really, really beneficial, because not only do you have a bunch of fun with people who become your friends if they're not already your friends, but you also get to really open up and create a character and create a world.
Yeah, and it's something like you can't explain. Like you can tell to someone who has never played, or even like get someone to watch Critical Role just to see like how much they put into it, because it's something that is not like normal for us. Like, it's something that maybe you get as a child, like, get super invested in something and going head first into something or into a personality, and society kind of beats that out of you. And I think that the like extracts that from you one way or another if you play long enough.
Yeah,
and it's not something that you
go ahead.
Like, no, just like if you want to, like, if you see someone who like needs to play, or if you really want to show them that, I don't think that it's like a cool way to explain in words or to describe them how good that is for you. Like,
yeah, I was going to agree with you, because
to go whole hog just something.
Yeah,
right?
you have to do it. It's an experience. Like, of course, you can go to somebody and say, a role playing game. You create a character. You have these dice which tell you whether you succeed or fail. You know, like, you can explain technically what it is, but the joy of it, the whole reason we keep going back to it, the reason we keep, you know, playing games or watching shows or creating podcasts and talking about RPGs all day, is because of that experience. And that's actually how my first time I ever GM'd and started DMing was because of that. I had somebody, it was a Comic-Con 4 years ago. So I had just got finished seeing the Critical Role people for the first time. It was their very first Comic-Con. I was fortunate to go. It was my first Comic-Con too. So I just seen them and I was really excited. And I had a friend back at our room who was like, "What'd you see all day?" And I was like, "Oh, I saw these Critical Role people." And it was like, "What is that?" "Oh, it's D&D." "What's D&D?" And I'm like, I can't really explain it to you. But I happen to have my dice on me, because I'm now that person who always has dice in his backpack. But I was like, well, here, you take this die, and then, okay, make up this fighter. Okay, fine, he's in this city, and I made up a city, and I made up a festival that's happening, and gave him scenarios, and then it just kept rolling from there and there. And then my other friends came back from their events, and they had played D&D before, or RPGs, so they were like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" I was like, "I'm kind of sort of playing D&D, but I only have one set of dice, and I have no rule books, and I have, you know, I'm using beer bottles and wine bottles as like my terrain." Like, that experience, he had to have that experience. And now, fortunately, because of that experience, he's completely into like a whole bunch of RPGs, and he's got multiple campaigns, and we do an online monthly game with all those people from that Comic-Con as well, because we just want to stay in contact with each other, despite the fact that we're not.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Like, even playing with people you don't know, like, it's a great way to become friends and to get into someone's life. Like, to experience new things. Like, you don't get to talk about deep stuff with people you meet like once or twice, or maybe you work in an office and you talk to someone for like years and they never like really tell you something deep about themselves, and you get to play one session and you just get to know someone like really on another level.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
And I think each character, and I think this might tie back also to what we were talking about with like Liam and the way he played Vax and his characters as well, is I think every character is a reflection of an aspect of a person's self when you're creating them, when you're drawing them, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, what's funny is if you get the opportunity to play with somebody long enough, you really get to know who they are through their character, kind of. Because I've played now, you know, for three, almost 4 years now, and with the same people. I've been lucky to play with the same people. So I've seen them do multiple campaigns and make different characters, but there's still an aspect of them in all these characters, so I can know, like, you know, one guy loves characters who are kind of assholes, and they're just like, I hate this, I'm over this, I don't like this type. And I know another guy who never plays a character without a moral code. Even if he's playing a bad character, it's lawful bad. Like, he always has some sort of code, personal honor, and that's because that's what that guy's like. So like, you kind of see that in people, because all your characters, all your art is truly a reflection of yourself.
Yeah. Another thing that I think that is great about it is that you really get to exercise your imagination. I mean, it sounds kind of tacky, but really, how much do they get to just like dream something up and go really into detail? And like, as an artist, I have to do that pretty often. And even I like get myself like improving it, like just exercising those muscles to like really create a word in your head and put people in it and how they react, how the world turns. Just something that you don't get to do with barely anything else. Like you get movies and games, but the world is there for you. Like people worked on it for years and they spend everything on it, and they present you with like a lovely realized world and realized people, but you don't get to do it ever. And I think D&D lets you do that. Like a lot of things don't let you do that.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to also talk about influences as well, because obviously, I did music in the past, so having done music now for over 10 years of my life, one of the jokes I make all the time is that there's no such thing as original music. There's just an original mix of different types of music. So there's no way you can't create something without being inspired by something else. So I personally wanted to ask you, like, what do you go to inspire you or to take an influence from? Like, are you a mythology fan? Do you have certain fantasy books? I mean, you mentioned video games, so I'm assuming you like the Dragon Age. And I saw your Kratos, by the way. I'm playing God of War right now as well. I'm loving the new game, and obviously being a mythology fan, seeing all the Norse mythology is also really great for me. So I'm getting so many inspirations from my D&D world. Oh, my players don't even know. My players don't even know.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. I just beat it last week. It's so great.
Yeah, don't spoil it. But
no, I won't.
Okay.
I won't. But yeah, first for a long time, I just like I said, a lot of anime was my inspiration, and I really just created characters. I didn't make like landscapes or created something deeper. And then I started seeing all the game art, and now like I'm sorry, I got off track.
You're fine. You're
fine. Start again?
Yeah, no, I was just talking about inspirations, and then you were talking about how it was early on anime for you, and then just simply creating a character. So you were kind of on that train.
Yeah. So early on, it's just anime, very simple, and then at university I got introduced to a lot of comic art, and I started getting a lot of those like quick feelings, like panel art, and that it's a lot more dynamic and stuff than just creating a character. Like getting really into building an image and telling a story from that image. And from there, like it was really natural to get into concept art, because all concept art really is to trying to just tell a story from an image. You need to put information into it. You need to put age. You need to put like it's a place that could exist, and all of that like built my visual library. And right now I use like almost anything in entertainment and media as really my influence. Mainly I get stuff from gaming. Yeah, like recently gaming has turned into a direction that is really visual, and like we were saying, God of War, The Last of Us, the new Tomb Raider. If you go and see all the art that they produce for these games is crazy. Like they really do very deep research, and if you start studying that, you really get like the sense of researching your subject, and that's really great for me, because I work doing painting these characters for a lot of different people, and their D&D character, they are really invested. They spend a long time creating these characters, and you want to do something that does justice to them. So every time that I ask for a briefing from someone to create their character, I ask them for a short briefing, but and they describe it, but I really go into it. Like, so this character is this race, is they are this certain personality, and I just try to find inspiration that really reflects that mood, going after the feeling of the character. So anything really can inspire me, like a landscape and a person, an outline of the person in the landscape can inspire me to do, I don't know, an aristocrat, for example, like a tiefling aristocrat, and somehow I can get that feeling from like a random image. So I really like to just go really out there and try to get inspiration from crazy stuff. I know it's not like something very linear, and it's difficult to understand if you don't do it. But really, you said you have a musical background. I'm sure that you've been through that also.
Yeah, and
like you see an image and something just pops in your head.
yeah, and there's the thing about with music too. Like you have I call it a bag of tricks, but it's just technical knowledge. I know music theory, I know chords and how they interact with each other, and I know if I wanted to make something sound sad, I know what a minor key is. If I want to make something sound happy or Eastern European or what like I know these tricks in my bag, or these tools I have. But at the same time, like the best way to write music is not to use the structure approach. It's when something just hits me, or you're just jamming and then something sounds really good and you're like, oh, we need to explore this, and then it comes out of nowhere. But that's the unpredictable. That's inspiration. That's where the term comes from. Really, the fact that it's from nothing something. So that's hard. That's the thing that's difficult. I mean, I can make a song, but if I'm not inspired, but you obviously want to get something that inspires you first, because then you feel like that's more rewarding.
Yes, like that's the thing that a lot of people don't get, and I really, since I've gotten like more followers on Twitter, I got more I become more public in a certain way. I get a lot of people that are starting to get into art and asking for tips and what skills should they have and what should they work on, what brushes, what programs they should use. And really, at the end of the day, it's not about that. Like you can train your hands and your skills all you want, but if you also don't have this if you really don't have this sensation, the ability to get this thing from nowhere and put it into those skills that you've trained, you really not get great at it. You get good, you can make something purely out of skill to be 100% realistic, but you never create something. That's the thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and you do it again now that you're like more profile, more followers, more things like that. If you're okay with talking about it, like how are you reacting to the fact that your name is consistently shown on a show that probably reaches hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people on the internet? When they show the fan art, your art comes up, and then obviously I know on some of the signings they do your headshots, they do your the Critical Role cast does. So like, how was that experience, having them reaching out to you, or you reaching out to them and all that?
Yeah, it's kind of scary, to be honest. Like I was always very like a shy person, and before getting into Twitter, I tried to like make to start to really cultivate an audience on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly like in Brazilian groups. In Brazil, the Facebook art groups and Facebook pages, personal pages, and artist pages are still pretty big. And I try to get myself to that environment, but really, I think I don't know if my like shy personality, I'm not like really that cheerful guy that posts every day and talks with everybody. I couldn't really quite get off the ground as fast as I wanted. And when I got into Twitter, in the Critical Role Dungeons and Dragons community, it just started growing so fast. It's kind of scary. But as I said, like I think it couldn't have been a better community to get into, because people are really supportive and they embrace you, and then they give tips to you of what to do or what you're doing wrong. They talk to you, and although it's being scary, it's being really great also.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, it's helping you out. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong. I think last I saw on your page, you were taking commissions. Maybe you aren't anymore, but that's also helping you out economically as well. Is this now something you do part-time, full-time? Are you able to pay the bills?
Yeah, I'm doing it full-time right now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And really, if it wasn't for this sudden burst of popularity, I surely would be something else and would be a side thing. And it really isn't what I wanted. This is what I wanted to do since the beginning, and I think I didn't realize it. It's something that I realized just at the end of at my last project for university. That I really had to do this thesis and work like months and months on this project. I really got into like the definition of the art that I was doing, and I really had to separate what I was doing. So I really thought that I wanted to get into gaming and concept art, and at the same time you listen to concept art, illustration, art, and you thought, oh, it's all the same thing, it's just doing art. But I started listening to, I don't know if you know him, it's a pretty big art teacher and designer for games and movies. It's called Feng Zhu.
No, I don't know this name.
He's a really great Asian artist, and he does these videos about the industry and what are the difference between being a concept artist and an illustrator. And it turns out that all along I thought I was wanting and doing concept art, which is like doing a piece of art that is not for you. It doesn't reflect you. It's supposed to explain and visualize an idea that some person wrote a story, and you have to put that on paper. And really, illustration is something that you do. It expresses your person, what you like, your personal style, and that's the finished product. And I realized that is what I was doing all along, and that's what I wanted to do. And since I started getting more commissions and really sustaining myself with that, that's the end goal, right? To be self-sustained and to really get to do this and get better at it.
Yeah, and I mean, for everybody out there, I've always said that RPGs are a good thing that enables us, obviously, to help learn more about ourselves and then about people around us and feel more social. And you've even taken a step farther there, where just like some of the people I've had on the show before, you're turning this into a career path and enabling this to like create a beautiful cycle of feeding into what you love, taking care of yourself, which will then allow you to feed into what you love more. So that's kind of a fantastic, kind of inspirational story as well.
Yeah, thanks. It is a really big step to take, to like refuse working someplace for somebody. Then you really are like for the first until you build your base, you really unlock. You really hoping someone you see your work and hoping they'll like it and hope to be willing to pay for it. And really, when people come to you and say, "Oh, this is my first art commission. I never asked anybody to draw anything for me or even paid for it," and that's just fantastic. Like you're taking, it's a pretty huge thing, like to take your money and invest in this person that you never talked with to draw a character that you spend a long time, and it's all based on trust, right? Like, yeah, you don't have contracts or anything. So it's pretty great when someone comes to you to contract you to do something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome how we're all kind of connecting with each other and putting faith in each other and helping each other. And you mentioned it earlier, if people coming to you and wanting stuff from you, what would be the best way to contact you, man?
Oh yeah, so I have all this stuff, DeviantArt, ArtStation, but really my main of contact right now is Twitter. My handle @BlackCylinder. You can find me on ArtStation by Caio Santos, my name. And really, these are the main places that you can find me. I have a DeviantArt page under another name, the Suruga Monkey, but I kind of left that for decided I really don't post there anymore. So if you really want to follow me and get stuff regularly from me, Twitter is definitely the best place.
And the links will be in the description on the Podbean page below. And obviously, if you want to follow me, my Twitter is @classy_dawn. And you can email us at myrpgpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and other places where podcasts are found. Thank you for listening, and I will see you at the table.